All right, so welcome to the weekly Campus Mentor Connect. And if you're with us, there at the very bottom, there are three little spots: mute, stop video, and chat. The most important one there is chat. If you click on that, there's a chat box to the side. And our topic today is student leadership. And so if you've got a question in regards to that, just post that there in the side, and we'll answer. But without further ado, I'm going to turn over to Chris Lane. And Chris, man, let's talk student leadership today.
Awesome, man. Hey guys, good to see everyone today, and hopefully we get this recorded and it's good for some future use for campus mentors down the line. One of the things that we discussed as our main topic today is student leadership. And, there's a lot of things that go with leadership. We always hear everything rises and falls on leadership. And, as much as that's a cliche, that's such a great, reality and a great truism for first priority clubs, engaged and equipped and enthusiastic. And those are kind of the things that we'll talk about today. That club is gonna really see fruit and grow, and it's gonna be a real blessing instead of a burden in your life, if you know what I mean. So some of the things that we want to talk about is just maybe throw out some things. How are you as a campus mentor, or have you experienced, or have you heard people all getting their student leaders engaged, like we said, equipped and enthusiastic in the EPIC strategy and in the leadership of the club. So I'll just throw that one out there, and we'll let some people share, and then we'll kind of keep rolling through the topic.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've seen that our campus mentors have done is dividing up the different guides into segments and giving it to students and having them prepare it, so that students really are leading everything from an introduction to the icebreaker to the lesson. And I went to a couple of different clubs and witnessed it. And one at a middle school at St. Lucie West K-8 was middle school students. The campus mentor had given the assignments to students. They led everything one week, which was awesome. I mean, the campus mentor literally was just encouraging them, in the back, kind of helping, but it was middle school students doing it. The very next week, the campus mentor wasn't able to be there. We had another campus mentor come, and one of those students just immediately stood up. My wife happens to be the faculty sponsor, but one of those students immediately stood up, welcomed people, did the introduction. She just took leadership on her own. And one of the things I was thinking about from that is the more we're giving it away, the more they will naturally step into it without having to be asked or trained into it. And so some aspects it's just giving them the opportunity at the very beginning and then letting them run with it. And that takes a little bit of a step of faith in some areas. We got to trust that they're going to do it, and we got to walk alongside them and get them equipped. But seeing the student really just step up on their own, a 7th grade girl step up and just take leadership, was a really, it was an exciting thing. My wife came home. She's like, man, this was so awesome. So, some of it is just giving them the opportunity.
Yeah, and I think another one, and maybe Fred, you could touch on this, is really making sure that our students are engaged and enrolled in Trained Up. There's some great videos on Trained Up that will help them learn how to be a great student leader. You got any words on that, Fred?
Yeah, with the Trained Up, but hold on that. I think a lot of us, maybe initially, and some as people are engaging in first priority, have to understand that students have the capacity to lead. What we hear from folks who have not really been involved with first priority for a number of years. Question: can middle school students lead clubs? Okay, do they have the capacity? Do they have ability? And yes, high school students most assuredly can lead a club. Middle school students can lead a club. They have to be equipped. And that's why we provide resources like Trained Up, get those students involved, and also our resources online. And we have a great team, and some unbelievable talent is represented in the First Priority family that has created resources that students can engage, just embrace, and apply. So believe that students can do this, and they can, and then release them and let them go.
Yeah. So now let's talk about this. You know, there's some great resources on student leadership. We know that the club can rise and fall on great leadership from students as mentors, being engaged in that process, communicating well, getting them into Trained Up so they're equipped, making sure that they know what's going on by communication. We talked about this a few weeks ago. So those are some great practical things. But now let's talk a little bit more about like some of the resources that we have. I know, Fred, you put in the chat the www.firstparty.cc/student/student. And there's some great things in there, because what happened is before where a student leader may not probably be in the best position spiritually in their own walk with the Lord to be recognized as a student leader. So what in the world do we do about that? Because this is a student-led club. You know, we know in the church world when a pastor sins or falls, from his walk with the Lord, that they're. But now we got students that maybe their lifestyle isn't reflective of a fully devoted follower of Christ, but they're up as a student leader. How do we go about being on the front end of this, or if this is happening on a campus, how do we address this?
Okay. Well, we have there's preemptive things that we can do. I think, Chris, we've had this conversation, and certainly this is something that we've looked at over the years. Hey, and listen, just a request, if you can mute when you're not talking, that will help with some of the background noises. So that would be huge. Thank you. So that everyone can hear. So the importance in that chat, the student commitment, is get students involved in the leadership protocol, the embracing the values and the directives in the commitment form, so they all understand, they're all have equal footing, understanding. And then we have, and I'm going to hit this share. I don't know if you'll see it. Did something pop up on your screen? Do you see? I'm trying to share this statement of faith. Do you see that?
There it is. Yep.
Told me that
I see it.
Yeah. So the statement of faith, it get everyone on board with the commitment and then the statement of faith, and that is on our website, underneath, included in that student page that you see in the chat. So you got to start square one, everyone knowing what it is to be a leader, and from that point, then I think you have to have this ownership mentality. These students have to own the polity of their club, that they take responsible to hold each other accountable. And again, that's one of our values, not only ownership, but accountable. We're going to hold each other accountable, because it's going to be peer-to-peer that is going to be strategic in this being a student-led club. Chris, you share your perspective about us as outsiders trying to influence.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, the interesting thing is that we are all working and serving and volunteering on campus as a First Party campus mentor, but really we are the invited guests, and this is student-led. So if students decide, hey, I don't really want to live up to the guidelines or the student covenant, or I don't want to follow EPIC, well, then what we have to do is say, hey, that's fine, but you can't be a First Priority club. So we're not going to allow you to use the resources. We can't provide the pizzas or the donuts, because the last thing that the world needs is a bunch of students, or a bunch of Christians that say they're Christians and they're not living Christian Christ-like lifestyle according to God's word. And it just is a bad testimony and a bad witness, and that's going to turn people away from the gospel instead of drawing them to hearing about Jesus and wanting that personal relationship too. And here's a case in point. We had one case study, and we don't want to go into deep, but we had a student leader that on a campus that decided that he was going to engage in a homosexual lifestyle. So he declared that on social media. And everybody was like, man, this guy is the president of the First Party Club. So, obviously our area guy knew him because they had gone to the same church, but then we come to find out, this kid hadn't been going to church in over a year. A lot of situations at home, nobody's really speaking into his life. So there was no accountability on his lifestyle. And he decides to, engage in this sinful activity and then make it public. And he still thinks he can be the leader of the First Party Club. So we have to sit down and share the scriptures with him. And he understood by the grace of God that, I probably shouldn't be a leader. And we said, hey, we love you. We still want you to come, hear the messages, be around. But we just don't feel like, if you look at our statement of faith and you look at a student leader covenant, that you really should be a student leader. So that's just really important as you, I know we're already into the year, but maybe getting back to that basic with your student leaders and say, hey, I need you guys to go online, fill this out, look over our statement of faith, so that if there's something they don't agree with, they could say, hey, maybe I shouldn't be a leader, or maybe I need to really recommit my life so that I'm walking in godliness as a Christian leader. What do you guys got on that? What thoughts you have?
Yeah, so we had a student about 2 years ago who just really wanted to take the club away from being an outreach club. She really wanted it to be a church, and she wanted it to be a place where like there's healing services and that kind of stuff. And so thankfully she had filled out the student leader commitment form, and so we were able to sit down with her and say, listen, you filled this out. This is what it means to be a student leader of a First Priority Club. Do you agree with this? And she said yes. And so we said, okay, listen, we need you to uphold this, or we can't have you as a student leader, because the essence of a First Party Club is to really be reaching your students with the gospel. You can't, to recreate church on campus is not what this is all about. And so, something I heard yesterday was this, that, two things. Like, sometimes there's no pain-free answer, but there's the right redemptive answer. And that it's like, listen, First Party needs to be a safe place where, we can have conversations and students can kind of talk through, things that they're dealing with, but we're not going to compromise the truth and the vision and the mission of a First Party Club. And so I think the onus is on us as campus mentors to say, hey, listen, we're gonna challenge you, and you can lead, and you can do this. But that's our job as a mentor. We want to set them up for success. We want them to do it right and to do it well. And sometimes that means having hard conversations and pulling some students aside and saying, hey, maybe next time you ought to do this. But at the same time, it's also good to let students fail. It's good to let them mess up at times so that they can learn from that, so that the next time they're going to do it better and they're going to do it right. But at the end of the day, First Party Club is to be student-led. I tell my mentors all the time that, listen, the end goal is for you as a mentor to come in on a Tuesday after school and just high five students and build relationships and, encourage new believers to get connected to the church. But sometimes you have to hold their hand. Sometimes you have to kind of lead them through that process, especially if you got clubs that don't have really that, 3 or 4 kind of quality outgoing student leaders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you guys, anybody else out there had any success with, using the student leader covenants and saying, hey man, we got these on file, we've used these, and this is, because on there's also a part where the local church has to kind of be a reference for that student. So that really, solidifies the partnership with the church reaching the campus.
So here's the student leader commitment. We have the accountability, action, and here's the form. There's definitely a spot here for church. Who's the reference? Do you approve this student to be a student leader? So here, and the link's right there, firstpriority.cc/student.
Yeah, and again, Jeff, again, a lot of this stuff is upfront stuff. If we do these things upfront, we're going to alleviate a lot of the potential problems down the road with a student that shouldn't be a leader, a student that kind of hijacks the club and it goes off in a different direction than and listen, a lot of times the things that students want to bring to the club, they're great topics and they're great issues, but it's just not the space to discuss them. It's like we don't want to recreate youth group on campus. We want youth group to be at the church. We want the First Priority Club to be an outreach to get kids to the gospel, equip us to share it, and get kids to the church, where then we can have all these conversations about these things in a very controlling, adult-led, biblically sound environment, not just a bunch of kids going, hey, I think we ought to just do this. And it's like, hey, yeah, we believe that God is the ultimate healer. Nothing's too difficult for him. He could do anything. But we feel like the space on campus during the First Priority Club, that's not the time to do that. This is the time of learning how to share our faith, being equipped, proclaiming the gospel, getting students connected back to church so that they can do those things back at the local church. And that's just really, a vision that has to be cast so often with students, because we know they can get off off the tracks real easy.
Absolutely. And it's a great opportunity when those things happen to say, hey, go talk to your youth pastor, go talk to your pastor. And obviously sometimes those kids aren't going to church anywhere. That's a great opportunity. Hey, come to church Wednesday night. Man, we'll come a little bit early. We'll have that conversation, or stick around a little later. We'll have that conversation. So it's a great opportunity at that point to say, listen, what we do on campus is what we do on campus. A lot of times questions and things that come up, it's like, hey, that's a great opportunity to have that conversation at church.
Yeah.
And we really need to engage the local church youth pastor in that. So when we have that student form and it's like, hey, this student goes to such and such church, well, and we see a problem or we see an issue or we see, them maybe falling off their walk with the Lord, we can go right to that. That's why network meetings are so important. We say, hey, I was with your student so-and-so at the club the other day, and this is what some kids were saying, or this is what we heard, or this is what they're doing. Hey, okay, we can engage them in reaching back down in there and, and doing the ministry to their student like they should. So, sometimes they just don't know about that.
Hey, I wanted to we're talking about engaging the youth groups and getting them connected. Steven's on the call and he's one of our campus mentors at Sebastian River, and they've done a great job of working through their youth groups to get their student leaders leading on club days on Tuesday. So I asked Steven, messaged him if he would maybe talk a little bit about how they're doing that through their school, connecting it back to the youth group so that that student leadership connection is strong between the church and the campus club. So Steven, maybe you can address that for a minute.
Yeah, definitely. We know it's been great. We've had a great success with the EPIC strategy. First of all, the structure that it gives in allowing that real connection with the student on a cyclical basis. I mean, we're able to have that format so the gospel can flow, and that's been great, especially for us as, campus leaders. I can't speak for all the other youth pastors, but we, as youth pastors in the area, there's about 4 or 5 of us that all get together and we talk amongst our small groups on Wednesday nights or Thursday nights, whatever nights we meet, and we say, hey guys, we're meeting at Sebastian River High School. We know you guys are here. Come join us in the club. And we get a lot of participation just from our churches funneling back into First Priority at the school. And then vice versa, we get the same thing. So we've gone from about 70, 80 students during the lunch period averages to around 100, 115 on average. So much so that we actually have outgrown our space. And we're going to be satellite broadcasting in between 2 different rooms. just because we've grown so much. And part of that is because of the structure, but a lot of that is also due to the intentionality behind it. The students taking charge and actually coming up and speaking truth in a way that is blessing and mentoring to their fellow peers. So we've had actually a lot of success with our students taking the charge and really leading well. And I think that because of what they've done and how they've done it, it's breeding genuineness amongst our group. And we've had lots of other people, new people, come up and say, I want to speak too, and I want to speak too. And it's been really encouraging to see new leaders, new students step up and come into the picture and really take charge. And it's been really encouraging.
That's awesome, man. That is a great word. Thanks for sharing that, Stephen. Incredible thing that's going on. I was up there a few weeks ago with you guys, man, and it's just cool to see what God's doing up there.
It definitely is, yeah.
Amen. Hey, so Tom Bowling is on the phone, and Tom has done an amazing job really through the years of just really encouraging and getting students to step up and lead. And Tom, man, share some insight, share some wisdom about some of the things that you guys do at Palm Beach Lakes, maybe some things that have worked really well in the past, and maybe even some challenges that you've had through the years.
Yeah, I was just listening. Are you hearing me, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, yeah, it's been a challenging year. It's been a great year. At the same time, I've been listening to just everything you guys been sharing. I'm on audio only, so I can't see you guys, but student leadership forums and things, we've gone back to them just like you've talked about because we had some issues that were going on. We had one guy that was not really qualified to be a leader, and it was a real sensitive situation. We shared it within our network meeting, and it turns out that kind of situation has resolved itself, where he's kind of just ducked out of things, but he's still kind of coming here and there to our meetings. So we're trying to embrace him from that end of things. But I think one of the keys that you guys mentioned was these student leadership forums, just going back to the basics and getting them to fill those out. And that's been a little bit of a challenge getting them all in, to be real honest with you. So we just keep harping, trying to kind of make that happen. As far as the leadership team itself, we've had opportunities to meet together. We've always, every 2 or 3 months, we have just a straight leadership meeting with the group, and we go over goals, we go over roles. We have talked among ourselves about trying to develop the leaders into niche groups where they're doing action items that are pertinent to the meetings. And so we're raising up teams of leaders within the group to be able to capitalize on those specific areas. And that's been a really cool thing. Just seeing leaders develop in the areas of the specific areas of the meeting, and allowing them to form teams so that they can bring in new leaders and always kind of be duplicating themselves in the effort.
Hey, I want to chime in. Thank you, Tom. That's good stuff. We love you, bud. This is Fred, if you can.
Yeah, great job, Tom.
Yeah,
Great.
I got you.
Love what you're doing, buddy.
And Tom has raised up a lot of students out of that school there in Palm Beach. But as we look at our values, and I'm not going to go through them all, but just to recap, the ownership that we really want to see students to embrace is so important, that they own the club, that they see their responsibilities as a call, they're on a mission, the accountability that they can have one with each other, but also as Chris was mentioning, and we said several times, the accountability to their youth pastor, to their church, to be walking with the Lord, to be walking in sync with what's going on at the church. That's huge. And then this final element, just a third thing that maybe we'll bounce around, how we can enhance this, because a key to the impact of a club that we've noticed over the years, and we've maybe taken for granted, but the most effective clubs have enthusiastic student leadership. Enthusiastic student leadership. From the 9 squares we could play. What was the square game? Brody, you're in the middle of my screen. Anyway, tic-tac-toe. Sorry about that. What have you seen that has engaged enthusiasm, raised the level of enthusiasm among your student leaders to impact their campus club? Any thoughts? Crickets. Well,
Okay, I'll go.
Hold on. I thought you threw that question at Brody. You didn't?
No. It's for everyone. It's at everyone.
Okay.
I'll jump in there for a second. You guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I think one of the challenges you're always going to have is with middle school students, because they're really not completely aware of what leadership looks like. But I think the enthusiasm for a middle school student is basically just giving them an opportunity to do something. And that gets them excited because they feel like, they're accomplishing something, even if it's just, making announcements. Because it's always a challenge with middle school to get them to be leaders. But they get excited when they feel like they are actually valued with an opportunity to do something. And I think a lot of times mentors don't realize that, a middle school student isn't going to run a club very well, but a middle school student gets excited when they're given some responsibilities,
Good word, Brody. Good word. What do you have, Steve?
No, I'll echo what Brody just said. So it's 2 dynamics. You have the middle school and you have high school. In middle school, what the club mentors are doing right now is that they're building their bench. They're going into it realizing that they probably are not going to get maximum output this year or most of this year, but as long as they're giving them breadcrumbs to lead them towards the end goal, going into next year, they should have some stronger leaders. So that's how they're approaching it this year. So they're doing a lot of the teaching, but they're allowing their student leaders to help in other aspects. On the high school level, that's a totally different subject. What I find in high school is that these kids want to speak. They want to be upfront and they want to talk. So because of their desire, that help motivate the whole trained up dynamic and making sure that we got everybody trained up because they want to actually do this. So if you want to do this, then follow our protocol. Like I said, so it's 2 different things. In middle school, it's like, okay, we're going to work with you this year to get you to where you want to be. In high school, a lot of these kids are already amped and ready to go. So it's just giving them the curriculum and having them follow it. I was at a club yesterday. I was at South Broward yesterday, and I was thoroughly impressed with their student leader. Not only how she spoke, but that she went through, by the way, Jeff, hats off to you because she went through that curriculum in such a way that I didn't even know she was going through the curriculum. I was like, wow, man. And she did it so well. We talked about it afterwards. So I think we're on the right track, and we just I think a year under our belt of doing this, next year is going to be a totally different outcome, a much better outcome.
I'll say this, kind of wrapping things up on our end, and if you guys want to throw something out there, I think that we as the mentors, as the leaders, we have to really challenge leadership from the leaders. Hey, it's not just this dictator leadership that you stand up there and you say, hey, you do this, you do that, I do this, I'm the president. But it's like, hey, are our student leaders buying in? Are they praying for their unsafe friends? Are they bringing their friends when it's Proclaim Week? Are they out there, are they equipped in 3 Crowns where they're sharing the gospel throughout the week and then giving testimonies of that? Because I think sometimes, we have this generation of like, well, I'm a leader. I just kind of tell everybody what to do. And instead it's like, no, man, you lead by example. And I think that's the thing that we're looking for is like, hey, does our leaders buy into Epic? Do they believe that Equip Week is really important and we need to be equipped and we're learning how to share the gospel and we're going through the 3 Crowns? In Proclaim Week, we're praying for our friends and we're making sure that, everybody on the leadership team is bringing a friend or 2 or 3 so that we lead by example. And I think that is really, really important, that we set that, we challenge our leaders to really lead in those kind of ways. I don't think there's any problem. I know it's October, November's coming up soon, but I don't think there's a problem going, hey, listen, as a leader, you got to go on trained up and you got to watch this. As a leader, you got to go on and fill this out. Otherwise, you're not going to be a leader, because a leader is also under the authority of the organizational leadership chart. Like, hey, I'm just not some rogue person. I'm going to fall in line and do what is asked of me to do, and I'm going to do it timely and right, because that's how a leader grows, and that's how a leader gets more responsibility, and a leader becomes better and becomes more excellent at being a leader. So I just kind of throw that out there at the end.
And also, just circle back about enthusiasm. As club mentors, we're going to have to be the thermostats with enthusiasm. They're going to reflect the measure of enthusiasm that we have. So if you're an introvert, you're going to have to pray for God to just take you out of that zone and for the hour be something that you're not. And then celebrate enthusiasm, reward enthusiasm on a personal basis or in front of everyone else. That was exciting. That icebreaker was huge. You know, Billy, you did a great job. You got everyone involved. Everyone is excited. Kudos to you. So the enthusiasm you bring to the game and the enthusiasm that you're able to celebrate, I think in time will raise that measure.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah, I think, Chris and Fred, you guys really hit it on the head. Like, it's the two things of like, hey, listen, as a leader, I'm going to be an example of what I'm leading, and I'm going to do it with enthusiasm. And at the end of the day, it comes back to us as mentors of saying, hey, getting our students excited, getting them fired up, but making sure that they're doing it. And there's wisdom. Some of the best clubs have that outside time with just the student leaders, and that time of praying, of planning, of making sure things are good, making sure students know what they're supposed to do. That's a challenge. That's extra. It's extracurricular at that point for what your job is as a mentor. But I will tell you this: your club will be better by doing that, by engaging those students and engaging them to do that. But at the end of the day, we're leading leaders. And so this is one of those things where it's like, hey, student pastor, you need to bring your A game. If you bring your A game on a Wednesday night and you bring your C game on club on Thursday, it's going to show. And so it's one of those things where it's like, you got to bring your A game. And when you bring your A game, students get excited. Students get fired up. Students want to lead, and they want to lead by example. And so it kind of comes back to us being that example of doing it.
Good word, Jeff. Good word, guys. Good stuff today. Great discussions.
Absolutely. So everybody, thank you guys so much. Time is up, and but this is being recorded, and it will be put on the Mentor Connect page on the website. And so with that being said, thanks again, Fred, Chris. Thank you guys so much. Everybody who's online and participated, thank you, and see you next week.